want to introduce a wonderful young lady who I got to know over the last year as a real hero. Her name is Suzzane Shattuck. She grew up on a farm in Virginia. She is a former military wife of 22 years. She has 4 grown children. For the past 7 years, Suzzane has been involved with several national security grassroots groups seeking to educate the American public about the active Islamic movement in America. As a nurse, Suzzane noticed the alarming number of patients from numerous countries who required translation services to be properly treated. This led her to research refugee resettlement and immigration in general. She seeks to educate others in her community about the economy, security, and health risks involved in a government-run refugee program in need of serious oversight and transparency. Suzzane produces a 1-hour radio show, I don't know where she finds the time, called Wide Awake, and can be found on talkamericaradio.us. She contributes to several conservative websites, and her website is obviously SuzzaneShattuck.com and on Facebook. Today, Ms. Shattuck is going to present on refugee resettlement, a peaceful conquest. Please welcome warmly Suzzane Shattuck.
Thank you so much to Dr. Chin and Dr. Swire for giving me this opportunity to speak to you this morning. And also for you all to show up here. I think the same thing about what Tom, his slides with the fella in the bed. And really, you've got a beautiful area here. I went to Siesta Key yesterday, and the beach is incredible. So really thank you all for having me here. And I'm honored to be speaking with Tom and John as well. So I am a full-time nurse, so I said cut me some slack. I may have to refer to some notes as I've tried to I speak on this issue of refugee resettlement, and it's periodic. It's not, not like every week. So I went through and wanted to update because this issue is so is changing. It's so fluid, and so I wanted to keep it as up to date as I could. So there's some information that I just want to share with you this morning to give you a clearer picture of what this program's all about. I think in general, and the shakiness of my voice as I get into this, so it will calm down a little bit. But I think we all understand that we are sitting in the middle of this deceptive culture, that the mainstream media works harder at not doing their job than doing it. They work harder at disguising the truth than they do simply just reporting the facts. And has anybody been very discouraged in your job if you're working hard and somebody else is totally not doing their job? And anybody understand where I'm coming from? So in my job, I work in an emergency department, which is extremely stressful. And if you don't do your job, somebody can die pretty quickly. And I look at what's going on across our country with the mainstream media, then with the political elite that are willfully ignorant of these issues, and yet they have taken an oath of office to protect our Constitution, and we have these organizations that are working 24/7 to tear down our freedoms and the Constitution, and these people are not saying anything about it. And then also, sadly, I think the saddest, that kind of links in with what Tom was talking about, is the fact that we have some wimpy clergy that are not in their pulpits. They're not equipping, their congregations with the truth so that they know how to fight, because this is an ideological battle that we're in. And so when I'm given the opportunity, like I said, you can tell I'm not used to being up in front of people. I'm used to doing a lot of not so fun stuff with people's bodies, but not used to being up in front of a large group of people. So anyway, I want to give you, if my goals would be to give you a clear picture of what I see about this refugee resettlement program. Extremely concerning what this is doing to our country. And the other thing would be to inspire you and provoke you to understand this issue yourself, because once you understand, if you start researching something because you have a curiosity about it, then you discover what the truth is, you cannot be quiet about it, especially if you see how it can hurt this country so much. So that's what I see lacking in our elected officials. They do not know these issues. And you can't have like a 22-year-old staffer come and tell you what they think. These people that you are going to elect to your office better understand this so that they can get up and speak about it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move on. I have my clicker. I'm probably not going to be as smooth as Tom with this. But when I see refugee resettlement, I know, I mentioned how it affects the economy and the healthcare, but really it is all-encompassing as it affects our culture, the economy, our education, healthcare, national security, personal safety. The political landscape is huge with this issue, and especially religion. And so I'm going to touch on those things throughout my PowerPoint, and I may ask some questions if I forget to, because I will give out freebies if you can give me the right answer. So I'll try to do that throughout this presentation. I want to start, because all this stuff is so negative, I wanted to start with something positive. And I am very proud of our president. And did anybody see his UN speech?
Oh, yeah.
Was that not incredible? Yeah. So I just wanted to read what Trump said about refugee resettlement, and I thought it was such a measured and respectful way of approaching it. He said the United States is a compassionate nation and has spent billions and billions of dollars in helping to support this effort. We seek an approach to refugee resettlement that is designed to help those horribly treated people, which enables their eventual return to their home countries, to be a part of the rebuilding process. For the cost of resettling one refugee in the United States, we can assist more than 10 in their home region. Actually, that number is 12. We can help 12 more. And out of the goodness of our hearts, we offer financial assistance to hosting countries in the region. And this is the safe, responsible, and humanitarian approach. So I thought he did a really good job there. But what I want to show you are the intentions of those who are pushing this program. And it is anything but humanitarian. It's not humanitarian at all. So who's using this refugee reprogram, resettlement? Paul Ryan. What are y'all thoughts on Paul Ryan?
Drain the swamp.
Absolutely, and I think Mitch McConnell right with him.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Paul Ryan, big, huge open borders proponent. And also, you all heard Hillary Clinton during her run for the lost, her losing campaign. But she's all about it. Chambers of Commerce are very involved in this program. Big corporations, because you're bringing cheap labor into this country, and that's their whole goal. The VOLAGS. Anybody know what VOLAGS stands for? It's worth a DVD. Does anybody know what VOLAGS? You're close. Volunteer agencies that resettle. So Peter, is that you answering? You can have this. So sometimes I'm not aware of what your knowledge is on this program, and I don't stand up here like I'm an expert. I definitely know more than the average, but I'm not an expert in this. But yes.
Does that, do the VOLAGS include the Catholic Church?
Absolutely. I'm going to get to a list of it. A list of them, yes. They're rolling in the money. They get paid over $2,000 a head to settle one refugee. So this is not the big, like I said, it's not big humanitarian when you're making tons of money. The globalists are hugely behind this. George Soros, Mark Zuckerberg, and Soros just wants to destabilize countries. And you can see what's happened in Europe. If anybody's paying attention, Europe has been destabilized through the refugees. They're being used, I say it's like asymmetric warfare. The United Nations High Commissioner, if you all ever hear of the UNHCR, this is Filippo Grande. He worked for the UN for 27 years, and he chooses our refugees. We do not have that authority anymore because we abdicated that the late 1990s. So the UN, controls this program basically. And the other thing is, I want to say, you can check the numbers, do your research. I want to say here we go, here's another question. Does anybody know how many Christians, I believe it was the year 2016, from Syria that we got into our country? And there were 85,000 refugees that year that came to our country. Anybody?
41%.
Less, yes. Boy, great. I'll have to give 2 away. I'll have to be very selective with my questions now. That was a tie. Yeah, less than 100, and that's because in these UN camps, they're mostly Muslim. Specifically, like in Syria, the Christians are afraid to go there because, of the heavy Muslim population. So we're not bringing people here. I'd say that we used to say, who do we want coming in our country? We want somebody who wants to be an American and who truly is running for their lives, not just coming here for all the welfare that we give them day one they get here. All local, state, and federal welfare programs they are signed up for. So, yeah. All right, so that's what I wanted to say about him. And this is Mahdi Akif. He was the head of the Muslim Brotherhood, I think until 2010. And I'm just giving you what to understand the Islamic movement is worldwide. They want it, entirely, to dominate the world. And he said the Muslim Brotherhood is a global movement whose members cooperate with each other throughout the world based on the same religious worldview, the spread of Islam until it rules the world. And, the more Muslims you get in more countries, that's what they're here for.
Can I point out something that
Yeah.
nobody's... See that little thing on the top of his head there?
Uh-huh.
Anybody know what that is?
Wow.
Say that again.
This little mark on the top of his head.
You know what that is?
It's where they live.
Touch.
It's called a zabiba. It's called a zabiba. That's where you pound your head against the floor in praise of Allah. And the more prevalent that bump is, the more dedicated you are to serving Allah. Did not just...
Interesting. Mark, thank you. Oh, I was going to say, does anybody know what the OIC stands for? This would be a giveaway. Yeah, okay. Or Operation, I think also the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. They are the 58 heads of state, 57 heads of state, and they are the largest voting bloc in the United Nations, and they have a lot to say about this program and who goes where. These are the departments that are involved in refugee resettlement. You have the Department of Homeland Security with their incredible vetting process. There's no vetting going on. I don't know if anybody's heard of Josh Tolley, but he has I think internet TV station, and he does some interviews. He interviewed this lady from St. Louis who sat in on these refugee resettlement program meetings with the UN, and she wrote copious notes. She could not believe what was going on, and she said there are refugees that are getting on flights to come to refugee processing centers within 24 hours. They are getting no vetting. They're bringing these people in the dead of night, so so we don't see them visibly. And then when they are at the airport, they apply for Social Security numbers and passports, and some of these people they don't even have a real name for. So this is an incredible program. Like I say, there's no transparency. We do not understand what's going on here. The Department of State, they accept those refugees from the UNHCR, and then they connect them with those volunteer agencies that I'll show you a list of. Department of Health and Human Services supposedly vets them health-wise. And there are people with TB, HIV, polio, leprosy that are coming into our country. And I remember the lady doing the interview with Josh Tolley even said she doesn't even know if they clean the planes after they come in. And they're using some of these commercial, airplanes to bring them here. So, yeah, we have TB cases here that are increasing because they're not being turned away. Just because they have HIV or TB, we accept them. And then we pay for their treatment. The vetting process. This is something I do want to read to you. There's a fellow that's trying to expose this program as well. And his name, I'm not going to give you his name. But just this last week, I had this in an email. Pardon me. He said about the vetting process, he said, I'm retired from the State Department and served in embassies and consulates abroad for 25 years. I had a consular commission, which means I could issue visas. People coming here to stay underwent a thorough vetting process where people like me actually visited their home areas, interviewed teachers, neighbors, local police, and every place where they had studied, worked, met their families, etc. This vetting process normally took up to 4 months, and they were in very placid environments. In the world of Islam, more than 50% failed that thorough process because they falsified their documents. Syria and its neighbors are in turmoil, and there is no way possible for an American official to stroll into a village or a town, check addresses, schools, neighbors, teachers, etc., and do all the interviews necessary. It is not happening with these refugees. So further, these people are supposed to undergo another physical examination, and we talked about that already. That's not happening. Apparently, he said near where he lives there were some people with resistant TB. Does anybody know what resistant TB is? All right.
Yeah, it's TB that doesn't respond to INH and the normal drugs.
Absolutely, and it's extremely expensive to treat. I want to say it's over $100,000 is what I have read. And this is a treatment that lasts a year. And who of us can take 2 weeks of antibiotics without, not finishing the last couple days? And in the healthcare field, we're seeing a lot of resistant, it's very scary, a lot of resistant organisms to these drugs, to our antibiotics, because we've made a habit out of not finishing our antibiotics. So that's a scary thing. Anyway, there were a couple kids that actually died near Riverside, California, because of that TB, and it was due to people that we're bringing into our country that are not vetted properly. These are the volunteer agencies that are associated with bringing the refugees here. I did run off. I was just, if anybody's interested later, just where some of these agencies are in Florida, if you want to have a look at them. But yeah, 8 of them are religiously affiliated, but none of them can share their faith because federal dollars are involved. So, we're not able to share, our faith, but yet they can come here and share theirs. So it's almost like we're paying for them to come here and be missionaries, And then there are nonprofits. The International Rescue Committee is huge. And you're right, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, very, very wealthy organization. The way this works, I'm just going to do very quickly because I don't have a good sense of time and somebody's going to have to flag me down when I'm done. But you have these subcontractors, there's over 350 of them that work with these volunteer agencies that actually will come into your town that will help these refugees get jobs, and they'll, like I said, they set them up on the welfare rolls. They help them with the health care, education. You would not believe, I pulled this off the International Rescue Committee site where I live in Virginia, and this is what they get. And I was looking at that list and thinking, I'd love for my kids to sign up and get stuff like that. But these are your tax dollars. I just want you to understand that. Because I feel like we have no say. We have no say over this. I want to give you a little glance of Europe because I feel like, what's going on in Europe is definitely, we're just, a little bit behind them. And so I wanted to talk to you about that. And is anybody paying attention like Germany, for instance. What did you all think? That was back in 2015, this summer, where you just saw this flow of people coming into Germany. And I ran across this little piece I thought was interesting because Facebook, let me see if I can find it. Where, Barry, what slide am I on right now?
This is not numbered.
16, okay, don't worry about it, I got you. All right, I found this quote in Angela Merkel. She reached out to Zuckerberg. This is just saying how these people are interconnected. She said, hey, it is important to remember how, that she said, wait a minute, hold on. She wanted him to remove the thousands of anti-mass migration posts on Facebook. And she sent him a note, hey, are you working on this? And Zuckerberg replied in the affirmative, unquote. So, I mean, you know, it's these people do not want anybody speaking out against this program because then it interrupts their plan. I believe Germany took in over 1.5 million refugees, and they're having, you know, a lot of problems over there. And you look over, and it's like they're committing suicide. And I don't know if it's this guilt, you know, guilt of their past, and they think, well, we've got to take these people in. I don't understand it. Has anybody heard of the Hijra before? The word Hijra? Okay, I know you have, Mark. Anyway, immigration, as Islam sees it, is an instrument of Islamic expansionism that employs religious and ethnic separatism in order to gain special status and privilege, and then they subvert, subdue, and subjugate the non-Muslim societies, and they pave their way for the caliphate.
Is this a video?
Yeah, and this is the video.
Okay.
Hey, wait a minute, hold on, Mark, back up 1 second. Y'all are being very, somehow that was out of sequence, but that's okay. We can work with it.
All right.
Now, you all know Mark Stein, right?
Yes.
Hey, hold on 1 second. In the middle is Al-Qaradawi. He is the spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, correct, Tom?
Mike.
Rich?
Mike.
It's not working. Oh, okay, you put me back on. And then you have Tawfiq Hamid, who used to be a terrorist, and now I think he converted to Christianity. And he's just speaking about this hijra and how it works.
The fertility rate as a key element of conquest, as they put it.
فتح روما فتح إيطاليا يعني وأوروبا معنى هذا إنه الإسلام سيعود إلى أوروبا مرة أخرى. هل من ضرورة الفتح أن يكون بالحرب؟ لا، ليس من الضرورة. هناك فتح سلمي.
This is a form of subtle threat that you cannot ignore. It grows gradually, and the moment you recognize its existence, it's like cancer. The moment you recognize its symptoms, it's usually too late.
Okay, yeah, Mark wanted to just remind me to remind you that the hijra in Islam, they would, you know, whatever in Islam you want to imitate Muhammad, and Muhammad left from Mecca and went to Medina, and so that they're to go to basically non-Muslim lands and to take over those lands, and they do that a lot of times through simply their population, and they're talking about, you know, their birth rates are so high, it's just meant to, you know, increase their numbers and then dominate.
Just one additional point is the Hijra is the start of the Muslim calendar, not the birth of Muhammad. The whole purpose of Islam is to complete the Hijra, the expansion of Islam.
Migration.
Migration. So, and Le Pen, I kind of hated to see that she lost in France because I think she understood this issue. But immigration is an organized replacement of our population, and this threatens their very survival. We don't have the means to integrate those who are already here, and the result is endless cultural conflict. And I mean, that's the thing, is we used to bring refugees over here in small numbers to where they could assimilate, to where they could, you know, learn to become an American. And now these numbers are just so massive. And you look at the education systems, for example, just in the county where my daughter went to school, back in 1970, they were speaking 4 different languages at this high school. This high school is now about 2,000. And there's 85 different languages and dialects being spoken. If that just gives you a clue of what's been going on.
I was on the school board, and the public school system in the United States has no intention of making these kids American. They call it multiculturalism, and
Absolutely.
their whole job is to keep the people fractured.
Right, divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Even more. Put them in these little boxes and yes,
That's been
absolutely.
going on for at least 30 years.
Right. And that's why I say Europe, I think, is ahead of us in that, because they've just embraced that multiculturalism for so long. And like Huntington, I don't know if anybody's read Huntington's Clash of Civilizations, but he said, the most dangerous cultural conflicts are when those different groups come up together, and really it has a lot to do with the different religions and different cultures.
Our very own county school board superintendent, I might not say which county, there was a special program for Hispanics, acclimating them to fill out all their forms for college.
Mm-hmm.
And she informed the students, the high school students, that they needed to look at themselves in America not as a melting pot. I want you to consider yourselves like a salad. You are a cucumber, you are a tomato, we are all different.
Right.
Rather than a melting pot.
Right, exactly.
That was her exact words. I had a friend that was there and shared that.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. This is Erdogan of Turkey. And back in, I think it was December of 2016, he had like 3 million refugees on the border and school buses. And, he's saying, look, we'll be patient, but we will do what we have to. Don't think that the planes and buses are there for nothing. And again, he's using these refugees. I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought, does government, if you're ever thinking they're looking out for the little guy, and they're there to be humanitarian, no. You need to look behind the curtain and see what is the motive behind these programs. And, Erdogan was using them, for like warfare, is what I think. Sexual assaults with the increase of these, of the immigration of people coming from specifically Muslim countries. I don't know if you all are aware in England of how the rate of sexual assaults and rapes in England, and it's been a big cover-up because it's such a politically hot, nobody wants to touch anything that has to do with Muslims if they're, the problem with certain issues. And definitely there are these Pakistani grooming gangs that they call these guys Romeos, and they will approach non-Muslim girls, usually, the English girls, give them gifts, talk about how great they are, then they get them hooked on drugs, and then they use them for, either sex trafficking and that kind of thing. Alarming what's going on over there. But like I said, media is not going to touch it because they're going to want to disguise and cover up the truth.
It's like a mouse office.
A young child, a young girl was being groomed in a hotel room. She was under a table with a load of Muslim men around her, and the father was shouting and shrieking in the street. And the English police arrested the father.
It's very scary over there what's going on. And I think, what is it going to do to, in order to wake the American people up? What's going to happen? So let me move on, and then I know we've got questions later. But with the increase of Muslim immigrants, like I said, Sweden, who would have ever thought Sweden to be the capital of the rape in the Western world? Up 300% violent crime in Sweden. Vienna, Austria, which I always think of Sound of Music, and now, totally different picture. These women can't even go out unsupervised after dark. That's what the police are telling these women. You can't go out without a male escort. So it's like they're turning Islamic as the population increases. The Muslims don't want to turn and to European ways. They want their ways to be established, and that's just the way of it. We have 500,000 probable cases of female genital mutilation in the U.S. now. And do you all know what that is? Okay.
I was going to ask if you had stats on that, but I'm also interested to know if you have, I know that things like honor killings and beatings of wives and stuff like that is prevalent in
And it's going to be
Islamic
so.
society, but they have pretty much changed the name of it to domestic violence here in the U.S. and now attributed to that. I'm wondering if there are statistics available on, Muslim-based.
I think it would be very hard to get those numbers simply because those women are not going to go report it. I think it's going to be something that would be very hard to get to those numbers. But do your research. That would be something interesting. We'll have one more, and this is a piece here. They're basically just, the Muslims there in England that are definitely wanting the caliphate, they're telling you exactly what they want, and it's not something we're making up. It's just, we're just using their words. So listen real close to this guy. The guy right next to him is Anjem Chowdhury, who I believe is serving time now in England for working with maybe Islamic State.
We are not Muslims living within the UK who are simply here to integrate and become part and parcel of democracy and freedom and adopt these values. Rather, what we hope to do is to engage within British society, to call to the sovereignty for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and one day, inshallah, implement the Sharia over man-made law, and inshallah over Downing Street and Washington itself.
Tommy Robinson is another, sorry about that. And let me set this up too, but this is a YouTube. I've been following Tommy Robinson, the founder of the English Defense League. He actually was interviewed by the Christian Broadcasting Network about those grooming gangs because his cousin was raped by a Muslim gang. And then he now is a very outspoken. I'm surprised he doesn't have like 24-hour security with him because he speaks out about being proud to be British. He's like, I'm proud. There's nothing wrong. Same thing with us. I'm like, why are we afraid to say we're proud to be an American? But yet that's what it's coming to. When we see NFL players kneeling for the flag, and it's just like, how did this happen? It's happened subtly, and like I said, the silent, peaceful conquest, it happens very slowly. But this was right after a jihad. I think it was a vehicular jihad near Westminster Bridge. And I just thought this was very telling about, it's just very passionate, so I just want to play this part.
Is an Islamic jihad attack. The man that done this would have either been radicalised in a prison or he would have been radicalised on the streets of the UK with full knowledge of our government and our security services. They will know who he is.
Do you have information that no one else seems to know?
Yeah, mate. I have information that shows there was 4 terrorist attacks last week in France. 4 in France. There was 12 planned last year. Driving your car like this man has done is exactly what the Inspire magazine, which is Al-Qaeda's magazine, which was downloaded by 50,000 British Muslims last year. 50,000 British Muslims downloaded a terrorist manual in our country. 50,000. Not 10, not 20. 50,000 people who want to see exactly what you see there. That's what they want. They want war, they want death, they want destruction, and we keep on pandering like you just come out to me saying it's got nothing to do with Islam. It's got everything to do with Islam.
Everything to do with Islam.
It's got everything to do with Islam.
I'm simply asking how you're so sure of the political
I'm on the
motives.
reality. This is the reality. The reality is this is a war. These people are waging war on us for time. This has gone on for 1,400 years. This is nothing new. And the whole time while this goes on, police leaders or political leaders want to invite more. They want to invite more.
So that's my point too here is I don't understand when we see what's going on. It's plain to see. I mean, like I can't even believe I'm having to stand up and even say some of this stuff because it's just common sense. And when you see things like that happening, always know there's a reason behind it. Just like here, he's in the middle of this and seeing that they're just bringing more and more, people from Islamic countries into their country. I think I've read there's like 5,000 Islamic State operatives that are walking, in England. They'll go fight, they come back to England. They could be, shopping in the grocery store with them. For all you know, we're living right down the street.
Edmund Burke, an Irish statesman, said, "It's easy for evil to succeed when good men do nothing."
Absolutely, absolutely. So I use him because he inspires me, and he inspires me to be a little, to be bold. I don't want to be in this situation. I don't want our country getting that bad, but then I'm like, we are bad already. I'm just saying, if you get on the FBI website and you start looking, just scroll down at the different people they have arrested, and you look into it, there's aiding of Islamic State, there's people being arrested trying to get over to Yemen or to Syria. We are sending terrorists from our country to fight over there. And again, this is the national media isn't going to cover it. And it's just amazing what is going on in our country. I just want to point out too, have you all heard about the Inspire magazine? I just want to give you a picture of that. These are publications that literally tell people how to kill infidels, which we are. This is another magazine that they use.
Let me draw attention to the name.
This one?
Rohingya. That means Rome, and that cross is for the Catholic Church. So the Islamic State is viewing the Catholic Church as the main enemy for them in the world today.
And here, I know you can't see, it's really hard to see, but it says, I think, the ruling of the belligerent Christians. And in this piece, you can read about where they're basically flaunting the fact that they beheaded the French, I believe the French priest over it, so the political landscape, I just want to touch on that too. I mean, there are numerous mayors and people in Parliament that are Muslim in England. Sadiq Khan, the first Muslim mayor of London, and he's, it's amazing that he's in that position, very powerful position, and they want to push Sharia law, Sharia law and the Caliphate, those are their two main goals. It's the two goals of Islamic State, it's the two main goals of Boko Haram, Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, Muslim Brotherhood, who is here in our country. They all want the same thing. I wanted to always, here's a little bit of positive. I don't know if anybody's following what Poland, Viktor Orban from Hungary, incredible. He is like one of my favorites. Everything he says about it, I'm just like, wow. I wish he and Trump, this is who I wish Trump would kind of start to really have close ties with. These people understand they need to protect their countries, and I just wanted to point that out. This guy here, anybody know who he is? Austrian, yeah, the Sebastian Kurz, and he is head of the Austrian People's Party, and he is one to watch. He is very popular, very outspoken about national, and not in a Nazi way. He's just proud. He wants Austrian, the culture to remain, and he wants to anybody coming into their country to assimilate.
We need the youngest world leader.
I think he's like 30, something. Yeah.
Slovenia and Romania are also
right. Bulgaria, Czechoslovakia, they're all kind of
Eastern.
They all
right.
have a common
They
background.
get it.
They all have a common background. They used to be in the USSR.
Absolutely.
They understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just want to state the obvious. You have a massive amounts of Muslim immigrants coming into your country. You end up having people like the mayor being elected in London. These people, they do not assimilate. They want to take over. That's in masses, and that is the reason for the big part of the immigration.
They do block voting.
It's all about the numbers. It's just like the numbers. The Democrats want to open up the southern border and bring people over, and then amnesty, DACA, all that is to get votes. To keep them in power.
Yeah.
Same thing is what the Islamic movement wants, and they want to get people in political office. Again, the goal, Sharia law. I have that coming up. So I want to give you just an idea of some of this group really, Engage. You need to be aware of them. This guy here, I believe he is tied with the Muslim Brotherhood. But these people are actually writing legislation and helping. And I want to tell you who, Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio was involved with this group because they wrote legislation. And this is something you really need to watch, and it's a hate crimes piece of legislation. Senate resolution passed it, I want to say unanimously, Senate Resolution 118. and the Muslim Public Affairs Council. Both of them worked at drafting the legislation. And basically, if you read into it, it is scary because you will not be able, I won't be able to stand up here and speak like this. You know, I would be under, you know, they would investigate me because you can't say anything negative about Islam, about these minority groups. So keep an eye on that. Anybody look at, you know, you look it up, SR 118, and there's a resolution in the House right now. I don't think it's been voted on yet. But it's just very important. These people are seeking to put Muslims in office. That is their, you know, that's their main goal. This one I think is Jetpack. That's a Justice, Education, and Technology Policy Advocacy Center. They're another one that does the same thing. The founder, Nadim Mazin, has ties with the Muslim Brotherhood. And this was my lovely Senator Kane. Oh, sorry. So glad he's not our vice president right now. Okay, the Muslim, these are all political organizations that are very strong in D.C. Muslim Public Affairs Council. Salim Mariotti, I believe I'm saying that correctly, is the president, real chummy with Obama. And then Van Jones, I think he links up with these guys a lot too. Yeah. So, and again, okay, I'll have to think of it. The next question that somebody answers is going to get the red-green axis, because I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Jim Simpson, but it's all about how the Islamic movement and the communist movement work together to get their goal. And so that's a great read. Let's see, next. U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations, again, just pointing out how powerful these people are. Nihad Awad, the head of CARE, is right there. I think that's Keith Ellison.
Yes.
Who's the big, tall guy? Does anybody know who that is?
Michael Bush.
That's hard. Yeah, it is hard to see. But Tom and company have been, I believe you all were there
Oh, that's
at one of
the
their days.
guy from South Carolina. What's his name?
Is he a congressman or?
Yeah, he's a congressman.
Okay. I want to point out this man here. Now, this is where I love President Trump, but I'm very concerned about, what's going on, continuing to go on in D.C. with the Muslim Brotherhood and the lack of getting the foreign terrorist organization for the Muslim Brotherhood. And that's Rex Tillerson, actually. He can do that. But this, on Inauguration Day, did you all see this Mohammed Majid? I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Wow, that's impressive.
That's a dead giveaway, by the way.
He was the head of the Adams Center, the Al-Dulles area mosque, Muslim society, Very powerful, very deep ties with the Muslim Brotherhood. Again, he was actually praying and speaking on Inauguration Day in the National Cathedral. Very disappointed to see that. That is something I'd like to see, is a distancing from these Muslim Brotherhood folks that are still very, very strong in D.C. This is, anybody know who this guy is?
A prisoner in Iran.
I don't have any more.
We don't?
I'm good. This man is running for governor in Michigan, and he is a Muslim. And obviously, you can tell his wife is, I would say, Sharia adherent. It's an outward expression of Sharia adherence if she's wearing hijab. She doesn't look too happy either. Hamtramck, Michigan. These are just examples of how this is slowly happening. What's happening in Europe is slowly happening here. Hamtramck, Michigan in 1970 used to be like Polish, very heavily Polish Catholic, 90%. Now they have loud calls to prayer, and this is a picture of, well, 3 of the 6, but 4 of the 6 on their city council are Muslim. So, that's how it happens. It's a very gradual thing, but I'm just showing you what's going on in our country, because like I say, there are little battles that are being won that are going to be very hard to get back this territory once they commandeer it. So the Minneapolis mayor, Betsy Hodges, very willing to submit to Sharia there. Twin Cities, Minnesota is said to be an enemy territory. Their media, again, is completely, doesn't want to talk about the Islamic issue and very apologetic. And and their city councils are the same way. I mean, it's just they're bringing in huge Somali numbers. What's happening in our education system? This, I think, was North Carolina University, where they had a prayer day out on the lawn. And then this is a Catholic school, high school, that just wanted their girls to wear the hijab and talk about identity and all that.
A Catholic.
Yeah, Catholic. So it's not just the public schools. Are y'all I know I'm putting you to sleep. Am I putting you to sleep? Okay.
There's 66 million people in England. 4 million are Muslims, and if you knew all the mayors of all the cities
Yes.
that are Muslim, that's good men doing nothing.
Right. Amen. Okay. I was just talking about how freedom of speech, again, just us being able to try to set the record straight today, just sharing a little bit of truth because of the lack of what our media, they're not doing. And Robert Spencer is one who has tried to speak, he tries to speak truth. And this was a picture taken, I think, before he came to this college campus to speak. And again, you've got Berkeley just crushing free speech. Islam is changing the political, not just the political culture, all that, but the religious landscape in America. Has anybody heard about a tri-faith type of church that's going on in Nebraska? Dr. Mark Christian, it was a former Muslim, and he is very much involved in trying to fight this, I guess, but it has to do with interfaith. Have you all heard of interfaith dialogue? That's big in Florida here. But if anybody's going to a church and your pastor is involved in interfaith dialogue, get out. Either confront the pastor and say, you stop it, or we're leaving. Because there's no, what is it in the Bible? There's no, good and evil shouldn't have. What is that verse?
No, I was thinking of a different verse. No man comes to the Father but by me.
Right, exactly, right. You can have a distance, but you shouldn't be doing anything with them, shouldn't be, because all these interfaith, all these interfaith dialogue movements is wholly controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood here in this country.
The Pope is pushing all that. Pope Francis is pushing the interfaith dialogue.
This is something that happened in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I want to say it might have been about 3 years ago. Did you all see this guy on Facebook? Anybody? Okay, so there is a former Muslim, again, Christian. His name Shaharam Hayden. He's a Christian pastor. He heads up Truth in Love Ministries. He had this conference of about 500 men and women and children were there speaking, and this man showed up here. He was a Muslim, showed up in the back of the conference center, and thankfully I think one of the security guards noticed him. He was acting a little strange, and he said, are you supposed to be here? Are you registered or whatever? He said no, and he asked him to leave. He went out, and on Facebook he played this video where he proceeds to say, the F-bomb every 5 seconds, saying, you better be afraid, you Christians, you better be afraid. And he's showing probably about 7 or 8 different weapons in his car about talking about the damage that he could do. And this man, nothing happened to him. Then you have, I'm just saying what's happening with churches to try to, to start to be aware because of what's going on in Europe, and obviously how, Islamic State just wants to destroy any kind of Christian relics and anything, any Christian, anything Christian. So in Texas, this was plastered, or I guess painted on the wall where it says Islam or die. There's been other instances of people noticing a couple Middle Eastern looking men sitting in the back of a church taking pictures and things like that. So it's almost like, are they doing some type of reconnaissance, So just be aware. I just think we're getting into uncharted waters, I guess, dangerous times. So I just wanted you all to be aware of that. Mm-hmm.
While we're on this slide, one of my favorite quotes is from Elie Wiesel. You probably all know who he is, famous Nazi hunter, Holocaust camp, hunter. Elie Wiesel used to say, if someone says they want to kill you, you should believe them.
Right.
When they carry these signs,
right.
what part of that don't you understand?
Exactly, exactly. All right, I'm not going to have time, but maybe later I need to sit down, give John a chance. But I want to talk about the Rohingya refugees. That's another thing I want you all to know the real story about, kind of like the rest of the story, like Paul Harvey would tell you. And it's not what the national media is telling you. It's not what even Fox is telling you. So I just think we need to wake up. You're right. We have to vote. And that's an easy button. I mean, that is something that is so easy to do. But before you vote, you all please personally get involved with whoever is running and make sure you bring these issues up specifically and get them to understand them before they say they're going to serve you, and then they get there and they don't do it. Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. So thank you all for your time. Thank you so much.